I'm trying to drop the card here, but it won't work.
Wo starte ich jetzt und was brauche ich? Also das hab... Wofür sind die Flammen?
Ouch! I asked my best friend, 15 strangers, and my mom to test my blacksmith card game, and it was a bloodbath. Let me tell you how I ran these tests and what I'm doing with the results. The first person I recruited for my playtest was an old high school friend. He has a lot of card game experience, so if he can't figure out my game, nobody will. The game is going to be a card game where you craft items for little adventurers, and through their success, grow your shop and your craft. The core gameplay loop is that you stack material cards on your anvil and merge them into more sophisticated items. And here are my current key questions. Do people get that? Can they merge some basic items without much explanation? Do they discover new recipes? Is there anything they get particularly frustrated by? So let's see how my friend did when I sent him an early build.
I would have liked more info on the card, like which cards are wooden and which aren't.
So he's lacking information like what material an item has. And that's totally fair, that should be there.
Why are these blue and these yellow and these green? Like, I haven't figured that out.
Okay, currently I'm color coding different card types like skills, materials, etc. And he's doing a good job deducing that, but it needs to be clearer.
So I get that this is a super early version.
This is a typical example of where a tester wants to protect your feelings, so I'm completely going to ignore it because I want this to hurt.
So this should improve a wooden card, and I'm getting a wooden card.
So here he doesn't see that the transformation has actually improved the card values, but I think we can fix that. So as expected, he didn't struggle with the core gameplay, but he was lacking a lot of information, especially on the cards. I also recruited 15 strangers that follow me on YouTube or TikTok. From them I can expect genuine interest in the game, but it's less clear how much experience with card games they have, so this might be slightly tougher. Feedback came through a survey I set up, and here are the main themes. Furnace heat mechanic is unclear. Yes, it's unclear, I agree. People are complaining about the balance of the deck, which leads to a lot of leftover cards in the endgame. People combining things that can't be combined. Experimentation is no fun when you fail all the time. So this went a lot better than I thought. Nobody discussed any deal-breaking issues, and everybody opted into the next round of testing. We need to be careful here though, because we didn't observe these sessions directly. People have a tendency to rationalize their confusion later on, so it might be that they actually really struggled in those sessions, but failed to report that in the survey. However, with our next tester, that will not be an issue. Testing with a mom or a dad is like a boss fight for playtesting. Their digital fluency is probably a lot lower than yours, and they probably also have a lot less experience with games in general. And maybe the worst factor, they hopefully love you, because that might make them not show their frustration and confusion. And that is exactly what we need to see.
Ja, wo starte ich jetzt und wie geht's los? Und was brauche ich? Also das habe ich jetzt und wofür sind die Flammen? Wo kann ich sehen, was ich brauche, was zu schmieden?
So here my mom is doing a really good job articulating her confusion. It's not clear to her what to do and how to find out.
Gut, dann kann ich das auch wieder wegtun. Das auch. Kann man die mal vergrößern, so eine Karte, dass ich sehen kann, was da unten...
Wie würdest du das machen? Whenever a tester asks me how to do something, I'll just say, what do you think? Or just try it, because I really want to see how they try and solve the problem. And I'll only help them once I'm convinced they can't do it on their own.
Und jetzt muss ich wahrscheinlich 2 Karten dazu gewinnen, mit denen ich dann irgendwas herstellen kann.
And here's our find of the day. Because there are 3 slots, my mom thinks she needs 3 items to combine them, which makes perfect sense if you look at the visuals. But it's not how I intend this to work.
Ich jetzt machen? Ich könnte auch noch mal hier ziehen.
Now she's just starting to try random things. So I'm gonna rule this a task failure, which means A, this is a serious issue that we'll need to address, and B, we can now give her some help to move to the next issues. So I'll now tell her to see whether she can find out how to combine 2 steel bars.
Wie verbinde ich die? Das ist aufgetaucht.
Okay, so she has figured this out now. And because we've been helping her incrementally, we can also see what intervention it takes to solve this issue.
Und dann versuche ich mal, was passiert, wenn ich Eiche auf Eiche tue. Also ich habe jetzt einen Griff und hier habe ich ein Steelblade. Dann versuche ich die mal zusammenzubringen. Normal, habe ich richtig gedrückt. So, jetzt habe ich ein Schwert.
So this was a perfect example of what I'm hoping to find during an early stage playtest. Large, experience-breaking issues that can become real problems if you discover them too late in the game. And while the confusion around the merging was a deal breaker for her, it didn't take much help to get her past that. So that means we'll be able to address this issue relatively easily. So now I have a bunch of issues that I want to go away. I could go through the list and fix them one by one, but I think there's a better way. First, I'd like to think a little bit about the underlying issues, because it might turn out that several symptoms we've seen might be caused by the same underlying root cause. For example, a lot of the problems were caused by there not being enough information on the cards. So by doing a proper new pass on the information architecture for the cards, we should be able to solve a lot of these issues in one fell swoop. Another issue was around the card handling. People didn't get the discard pile that wanted to drop things back into the hand and on the table, so I'll simply allow all that by making the background a large drop zone and adding one for the hand. I'll also completely remove the heat mechanic for now, because all it did was adding a lot of confusion, and the problems I thought it would solve didn't really happen in the first place. And what about that experience-breaking confusion that my mom experienced around merging cards? I asked you for help on YouTube and TikTok, and while there were many good ideas, I think this one takes the cake. Why not just start the player off with one anvil slot? I love it because it's so simple and works by taking complexity away rather than adding more. There was one key issue though where there isn't an easy fix. People struggled combining things and ran into a lot of dead ends where there wasn't any recipe for the cards they tried. In this game, I always want the player to have options. So even if you don't know a single recipe, you can just experiment your way to some half-decent items. So in order to fix this, I'll go back to the drawing board and I'll figure out a solution so that players can add and merge different cards without me adding 1 million recipes to the backend. Now, as far as playtesting goes, this was a very productive one. It's never nice to see people not understand your game or even actively dislike it, but the upsides of exposing yourself to that, huge. It allows you to find so many issues with your game really early on. It also gives you a pair of fresh eyes when you can't see the forest for the trees anymore. And it also hones your sense for how people think and talk about your game, which is really important when you're trying to find an audience. So all in all, I view playtesting as catching an avalanche. The earlier you do it, the better shape things will be in further downhill.